enjoyed the morning session, the morning keynote. I know I sure did. All right, looks like we're filling up here. That's great. So good afternoon. I hope you are enjoying the 19th annual and second virtual Forum for Excellence. I'm Whitney Thompson, Deputy Director for Workforce Education for the Community College Board. I hope everyone was able to catch Dr. Aiken's keynote address this morning on anti-racism and anti-racist practices. What an open, honest, and relevant dialogue to kick us off with today. While the Forum for Excellence features a variety of topics more broadly, such as student engagement, dual credit, college completion, employer engagement, etc., all of which are important to our audience, which is represented by a variety of folks, K-12 districts, regional offices of education, workforce leaders, community-based organizations, state agencies, community colleges. I wanted to hone in on this conference's purpose, to provide professional development and collaboration among two specific entities, adult education and postsecondary career and technical education. You are why we put this conference on. This year, like last, was one of constant pivoting, probably some panicking, long days, staff turnover, personal and professional loss, the struggle to balance the working from home, the work-life balance, as our capabilities are and our capacity is thinned. So I do want to take a minute to recognize the great resilience and strength and work of our adult education and career and technical education providers and programs. The work that you do for our students is immense and very important, and often life-changing. Last week, we had a board meeting where we heard from a former adult education graduate who participated in a English language acquisition program and then transitioned into one of the college's IET programs, who was then hired by the college and is now working on her master's. So that really just does show you the impact of our programs. And again, this is all in the context of COVID-19. However, to strike a positive tone away from the COVID-19 pandemic, because I do believe a light is in sight. And with all these challenges are opportunities, and I see great investment and promise in our future. And here with us today to talk about the future of adult education and career and technical education from a national perspective in this changing landscape, as well as share federal priorities, which of course drives many of our own state priorities, is Jennifer Mishory, delegated the duties of Assistant Secretary, Chief of Staff, U.S. Department of Education, Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education. Dr. Mishory most recently served as a senior fellow and senior policy advisor at the Century Foundation, working on policies related to higher education finance, the federal and state level, workforce development, and healthcare coverage. Prior to joining the Century Foundation, she co-founded and served as the executive director of Young Invincibles. Many of you know Young Invincibles, they do lots of work in our state. While at Young Invincibles, Jen led initiatives focused on policy solutions to a range of economic challenges facing today's young people. Jen received a bachelor's degree in both economics and political science from UCLA and a JD from the Georgetown University Law Center. Please join me in virtually welcoming Dr. Mishory.
Thank you so much, Whitney. I have to say I'm not a doctor, but I am thrilled to be here and thrilled to be able to take a few minutes and engage with you all. And thank you so much for inviting me here today. Thank you to the Illinois Community College Board, to the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, and the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center for all the work that you've done to pull this important event together. And I also just want to echo, and I think I probably will echo this again in my remarks later, but the thanks and appreciation that Whitney just expressed for all the work that you've done in the last year and a half. We know it hasn't been easy and that it's taken creativity and long hours and real dedication to your students in the wake of the unprecedented pandemic. So thank you for everything that you do every single day. Here at OCTAE, our vision is that all America's learners have equitable access to acquire the right knowledge and skills at the right time for the right next steps in their lives and their careers. And we know that you make that vision a reality every day for our learners of all ages, of all walks of life. And I'm just really honored to serve in this role to better support you and the work you're doing every day. I'm going to talk about the role of adult education, of CTE, of community colleges. And, in particular, when we talk about community colleges, I'd just like to take a second and acknowledge that we're so proud to have a community college and expert and champion for education in the White House with Dr. Jill Biden. This administration is really positioning community colleges in a leading role across education, workforce, and economic development. And we know, and I know, the transformational role that community colleges, that CTE, and that adult education can play in people's lives. We know that it's critical to support our students as they're balancing their own personal challenges, to support themselves and their families as they work hard to build a better future. And we want to make sure that as we're building and working toward and implementing a vision around this work, that we're supporting people through their lifelong learning journeys and making sure that they have the ability to access and complete an education that will connect them to a quality job. So this administration's Build Back Better agenda has a really big, bold vision when it comes to career-connected learning, and specifically to community colleges, to CTE, and to adult education. So I want to talk first about the college access front. So the President Biden's Americans Families Plan would put a community college degree or credential in reach for Americans regardless of income by providing them with 2 free years of community colleges. If all states participate, about 5.5 million students would pay $0 in tuition and fees. This proposal would work as a federal-state partnership, with the federal government putting up all of the dollars up front and then scaling down to 75% of the cost of the national median tuition fees. States would need to match the rest, but could use existing state and local funds that go toward financial aid for community college tuition to help make that match. And so we're really excited about this important and bold proposal, and think it could be transformational to really tell every student out there that if they want it, college is for them, and it's there and it's accessible. We're really thrilled about this proposal. I also wanted to mention a big proposal to increase Pell Grants by $1,800, which is an enormous first step toward the president's commitment to doubling the grant. And we know that non-tuition costs often stand in the way of students enrolling in college. And so combined, we think these proposals will really go a long way in addressing some of the affordability concerns facing a lot of students as they're looking at post-secondary education. We also know that we need to support our students when they get to post-secondary education. And so we have a proposal, a college completion grant proposal that would create a new grant to go to states and then go out to institutions to make sure that they're providing evidence-based wraparound services and student supports. This investment would ensure that more students, and particularly students from underserved backgrounds, would not only enter, but persist and complete a post-secondary credential. And this could be supports like wraparound services, from childcare to mental health services, to peer mentoring, to emergency basic needs grants. We also want to make sure that our education systems writ large have clear connections to the workforce driven by equity. And I want to mention a couple of proposals related to that goal. The first is an investment in middle and high school CTE. So we have a $10 billion proposal over 10 years to expand career pathways for middle and high school students. And this is really intended to support innovation in CTE programs and ensure that more students, particularly those from low-income backgrounds and students of color who may not otherwise have the opportunity to participate in high-quality CTE pathways, can do so. We also have proposed a $1 billion investment in adult education. And just yesterday, the secretary stopped by the Penta Career Center in Toledo, Ohio. I was with him there. He's out on his return to school bus tour. And we had a chance to talk to adult education students. And we heard from them about the ways that the opportunities to gain their high school equivalency, to learn English, were changing their lives. We heard the hopes and dreams of people for whom maybe high school didn't work out the first time, or who came to this country and have aspirations of being entrepreneurs here. And we know what a critical role adult education plays in the lives of participants, and we see it as a critical part of our economic future. We're also working closely with partners at the Department of Labor to make sure that our agenda focuses on connecting workers with good jobs now and in the future, and that we're pairing job creation efforts with next generation training programs. And this comes with a focus on things like sector-based training, expanding apprenticeships, and ensuring that community colleges have the investments needed to really connect to their local economic challenges, and are working closely in partnership with industry as well. So as I think about all of these ambitious plans, and I know I listed a lot, and it's because we have a lot of big ideas, I just see so many opportunities for education to be a driving force in the way that we build back better. We know that as we begin to reemerge from this pandemic, we have to seize the opportunity to build systems that we need to more effectively serve our learners and our workers, and to meet industry needs. And as I mentioned before, I also really appreciate how hard it is to lead in this moment. We know that the pandemic exposed and deepened the inequities that have been longstanding in our education and workforce systems, largely along race and class lines. And going back to OCTAE's visions, you are on the front lines of providing people with the knowledge and skills at the right time for them to take their right next steps in their lives and careers. You're serving those who need it most, students juggling work and life and school, and supporting their own children's education, and who may be experiencing poverty and weighing the option of education versus another part-time job. Students who are English language learners and immigrants to our country, students who may be incarcerated, or who are in reentry and following incarceration, and so many more. And so this is why we think that this is truly a once in a generation moment we're in, with historic investments and opportunities to drive the reimagination of our educational system. And the Secretary has really charged us with the work of not just returning to normal, but to be transformational. And we want to do that with you as you continue to reinvent and lead in your roles. So thank you for everything you're doing on behalf of our nation's learners, workers, and communities. We at the Department of Education want you to think of this as the beginning of an ongoing collaboration with us. And I welcome any additional follow-up, and really look forward to the discussion. And if you don't mind, I would love, I have a few more minutes to hear from you all about what is happening locally in your programs, how you're responding to the pandemic and reopening, the challenges you're seeing as you're rebuilding in your local economies, and really just any key takeaways you want me to take back to my colleagues here in Washington, D.C. So with that, I will pause and would love to hear from any of you.
So we'll give it a second for folks to type in those responses to you in the chat, and then I can help read those off, or if you would like to read them, that's fine too. And then if you want to raise your hand as well, our staff can unmute you and you can speak directly to Jennifer Mishory.
I saw someone say, please post your title, and I would say, please call me Jen.
It usually isn't a quiet bunch, so maybe they're typing some long responses here. And yes, Missy, I'll post her titles.
That's really exciting. So I'm seeing in the chat new programs in green technologies. Sarah, would love to hear more if you want to come off mute and share what you all are doing. That's so great, developing a CTE pre-apprenticeship program.
We do have one question in the Q&A. The question is, it's hard to recruit students right away when they can stay home and earn money, or so they can get a job with no training because employers are desperate for workers. What advice do you have for students or for administrators in recruiting students into the education sector?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly thinking about making sure that we're investing in strategies that allow for students and folks currently in the workforce that responds to the realities of lives of someone who maybe still needs to work but wants to be able to enroll in class, that may have childcare responsibilities. So a lot of what we're thinking about in terms of providing some of those career services, those training programs, those opportunities, is how we support some of the wraparound help so that somebody can take, even with those responsibilities, can take the time to be able to go back to school when it makes sense for them. But it's a great question. Any other big ideas, highlights of new programs that you're, or existing ones that are just working well in your communities that you want to make sure we know about?
Jen, someone was posting about their flex classrooms, which are kind of like those flipped classrooms or hybrid approaches to instruction. And that's been super helpful in the pandemic, I know.
Absolutely. Well, we're very accessible at the Department of Education. Our emails are our first name dot last name at ed.gov. We'd love to meet with you all if you have questions or if you want to share what you're doing on the ground. We are very much looking to connect with folks in the field. My colleague Elias Romanos, is a special assistant in our office, is on as well. And I just want to open the door, the virtual door, and say, anytime you want to reach out and connect more on some of these issues or just share what you're doing, we would love to hear from you. So thank you so much for having me. I'm going to make sure that we get all the notes from the chat in terms of what's going on. And we can take that back to our team here in DC. So thank you so much. Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you, Jennifer, for being with us today. We know that you are very busy and jumping from meeting to meeting, and so we appreciate OCTAE being able to attend our conference, and we have seen that from a number of past acting or delegated assistant secretaries. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Whitney, and thank you, everyone.
I know we still have Elias still here with us, and we have a little bit of time. So I know that we can either take a longer break, which is always welcome for those who are needing to get back to checking email, or Elias, there's been a number of questions in the chat or feedback in the chat that we'd love to kind of just walk through. It's up to you.
Hi, yeah, sure. I would be happy to hear that feedback, and then we'll absolutely take it back to Jen, and we can follow up as necessary, definitely.
Great. I'm going to read a couple of questions. So someone asked, do you anticipate investment in in sort of capital investments at community colleges. Specifically, current technical education programming is very expensive in terms of the type of equipment and technology. Do you anticipate capital investments from the administration?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And obviously we know that infrastructure at community colleges and the way that we, need access to the materials that we need to teach these courses is super important. So I know it's definitely something on the administration's mind, and yeah, we'll happily take that question back. And yeah, absolutely.
Great. And I know that Jennifer also spoke about Pell Grants and the expansion of those. I know there's been a conversation nationally around expanding the Pell Grant for short-term credentials or even non-credit certificate programs in some instances. What are you hearing at the national level as it relates to those conversations?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we have heard a lot about. Again, I don't want to necessarily speak on that myself, but would be very happy to take that back and yeah, follow up with answers on this as well. Great.
Yeah, we're seeing lots of kudos to Jen for sharing the national vision. Of course, our folks are interested in and are sharing the ways in which digital literacy is so important, digital skills in today's environment, collaboration and partnership between community-based organizations and community colleges. So for example, here in Illinois, we have been a leader in integrated education and training implementation, both from adult education providers at community-based organizations as well as community colleges. But of course, community-based organizations can't offer the credit programming. That would just be our community colleges, and so and or any four-year institutions who are adult education providers. So thinking about how we can better formalize those partnerships between those two providers, I think is important, and Emily pointed that out. So thank you, Emily. Elias, any last comments or anything?
I think would just sort of echo what Jen said and say that, we want this to be the start of a conversation, and absolutely welcome any follow-up or feedback that you may have. And truly just thank you all for inviting us to be here today. And I just dropped my email into the chat for everyone. So if you do have follow-ups, please feel free to reach out. And yeah, thank you all so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elias. So Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you. There's some really good conversation in the chat, and so I don't want to cut that off because I know this could also serve as a good networking opportunity. So I'm just going to kind of read a couple of those quickly, and then we'll give folks some time between now and the next breakout session. So it looks like expanding dual credit opportunities, some questions in the chat around how do we incentivize businesses to participate as part of work-based learning, so paid internships. And I think that's a great question. We're always trying to engage the business community in a variety of ways. And so how can we continue to incentivize that when they're also very busy too and have their own priorities? So how do we sell and make that partnership strong? So I think these are all great things. So I appreciate everyone being on, and I know we appreciate Jennifer's time this morning or this afternoon, and knowing she had to jump off quickly. And of course, hopefully next year we're in person and we can keep folks a little longer, but we appreciate you being flexible with our virtual schedule here. All right, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Whitney. And it's nice, besides hearing from Jennifer, it's nice to be able to have our voices be heard to send back our comments and our questions. So thank you very much. And so I again get to take us into the transition us. So if you're thinking, oh, Sarah, you already told us all the housekeeping things, I've got some new items. So just letting you know, hang on for just a couple of minutes. so that you know how to make the most of your Forum for Excellence experience. So you've already had the opportunity to hear from 2 speakers. You've heard from 1 concurrent session, and we'll be heading into our next concurrent session at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So be sure and check out the variety of sessions for you. As you now know, you can access them about 10 minutes prior to the start time. And all sessions are going to be recorded and available for you on the conference website in about a week. Give us a little time to get those all up and posted for you. Please, as I said before, please make sure you visit and support our conference vendors. We really appreciate the support that they give us, and they can be found on the exhibitors tab. And many of them have promotions and specials in our Forum for Excellence attendees, and we appreciate their continued support. And here's the new thing that I didn't mention earlier. I promised you there'd be something new. That besides all of the concurrent sessions and the speakers, we also have on-demand sessions for you. So the good news is everything's recorded, and after we have that all up for you, you can literally visit every single session and every single speaker. In addition to that, starting anytime you wish, there are on-demand sessions. You go to the resources, and then underneath resources on the left-hand side, you'll see on demand. Right? Isn't it great to have a partner who just like models it for you as you speak? That's true collaboration and partnership. Thank you very much, Amy. I appreciate that. We hope that all of you will have the opportunity to network with people and to meet some additional people. So in addition to hearing all the great presentations and the speakers and the vendors, we hope that you talk to each other. So make sure you look at the attendees section. You can find people with common backgrounds or interests. You can meet somebody who has something completely different than you, so you can learn about a different experiences. I really encourage you to, if you haven't already, to do one of the icebreakers. And one of the icebreakers is, where would you like to visit? There's some very interesting places and experiences. So, check that out and get a chance to meet each other. For help with any of these items, click the resources section and then choose Whova App Attendee Guide, and that can take you through a whole lot of information. Please like and share our posts on social media, spread the word. Our hashtags are Forum for Excellence 2021 and Excellence for Equity, and those are the number 4s. And as always, let me just share with everyone else who's talked today, thanks to all of you for all of your efforts to reach and teach our learners in Illinois. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you at the 2 o'clock concurrent sessions. So thanks, everybody.